Ukraine is hiding radar data from prosecutors and investigators in the case about the downing of flight MH17. Ukraine is also causing the death of people at checkpoints with the Russian occupation. And the United States and Ukraine want to bomb Siberia. Welcome to Stop Fake, the place where we dissect disinformation about Ukraine and a little more. Let's get to it. Last week, several pro-Kremlin media outlets published stories claiming that Kyiv had intentionally hidden radar data in the case of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17, which was shot down over occupied eastern Ukraine in July of 2014. Newsfront, Rusfakt, Vzglyad, Rambler, Luga One News, and others all cite Dutch prosecutor Thijs Berger, who allegedly made such a statement during a court hearing on June 9, 2020. Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 was traveling to Kuala Lumpur from Amsterdam on July 17, 2014, when it was brought down by a Russian Buk anti-aircraft missile, killing all 298 people on board. 193 of the passengers were Dutch nationals. StopFake reviewed the video from the court session that took place on June 9th and found that Prosecutor Berger did in fact say that Ukraine did not provide primary radar data, but he also explained why this was not done. Ukraine did in fact provide information to the Joint Investigating Committee. Now, on July 17, 2014, the radar in Donetsk was turned off because it was located in territory controlled by the Russian proxy forces of the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. The radar located near the village of Artemivsk was damaged during fighting, and the radar in Chuhuyevo was undergoing routine maintenance. Interestingly, not all Russian media distorted the Dutch prosecutor's words. The TASS news agency, for example, featured Berger's full statement, which explains why complete radar data was not available. RIA Novosti also featured the same explanation. It is clear from the court proceedings that there are no charges or accusations against Kyiv from the Dutch prosecutor's side. Nevertheless, some Russian media decided to fabricate their own accusations. The Russian pro-Kremlin publication Newsfront called the recent death of a 59-year-old man at the Mariinka checkpoint between Ukraine and Russian-occupied eastern Donbas a provocation orchestrated by Ukraine and the UN mission. Newsfront claims that Ukraine bears the responsibility for the man's death because Ukrainian authorities opened up the checkpoint without coordinating the move with Russia's proxy forces currently occupying the area. Claims that Ukraine did not inform the Russian proxy forces about opening two checkpoints at Mariinka and Stanitsa Luhanska, however, are completely fake. Ukraine's leadership informed the occupation administration directly and in advance that for humanitarian purposes, the two checkpoints would be partially reopened on June the 10th. Although the Ukrainian side of the checkpoints opened on time and people were processed and allowed to pass through to the occupied side, Russian proxy forces refused to allow people to enter and installed anti-tank fortifications on their side. According to Denis Kazansky, a representative of internally displaced people in Ukraine, the proxy force's decision not to allow people to pass through the occupied territories is politically motivated. Kazansky wrote on his Facebook page, quote, "Opening up the crossing points is first and foremost in the interest of the people in the occupied territories who need to receive their pensions and social benefits, but the militants refuse to let them out. Apparently, so later they can shout about the terrible Ukrainian blockade and genocide." The decision by Russia's proxy forces to refuse to let people through resulted in many being forced to spend the night directly at the checkpoint. On Friday, June the 12th, a UN monitoring mission in Ukraine reported that a 59-year-old man trying to reunite with his family in Donetsk died in the occupation-controlled side of the Mariinka checkpoint. The man had health problems and had spent several months in various healthcare facilities in Ukraine-controlled territory. He had been waiting for an opportunity to cross the contact line since June the 10th. In the evening of June the 11th, he felt unwell and was taken to hospital. Shortly afterwards, he returned, hoping to cross into the Russian-occupied territory, the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic, the next day. He died of a heart attack several hours later. There are many other instances where Russian proxy forces have not allowed people to return to the occupied territories. On June the 11th, a woman became ill in the gray zone after DPR guards would not let her through. Unable to move, she was not offered any help by the proxy forces and was finally evacuated by Ukrainian authorities and the Red Cross. Another two people were kept in their car in front of the checkpoint for more than 3 days, stubbornly preventing them from driving home to the occupied territories. According to the pro-Kremlin Russian Orthodox monarchist website Tsargrad, Ukraine has developed a plan to strike Siberia and the Arctic, with the United States carrying out the bombing of these Russian territories. This latest fake about an attack on Russia also accuses the defense consulting company Defense Express of developing the plan to bomb Russia's northern territories, and that the Americans will follow through with this strategy developed by military analysts in Ukraine. The catalyst that created this latest wave of fakes about potential attacks on Russia was an article by the Defense Express consulting company about the June 3rd NATO training mission throughout Europe and the Arctic involving American B-52 fighter jets and Norwegian F-35s and F-16 planes. The jets flew close to the Russian border, producing waves of Kremlin indignation. The Defense Express article describes the training exercise and the technical characteristics of the American jets, including the capabilities of the cruise missiles the jets carry. The article points out that these cruise missiles have a range that could destroy Russia's strategic goals in Siberia and the Arctic. But the Defense Express article does not contain a plan for bombing northern Russia, nor is there even a remote suggestion of that. It simply describes the combat possibilities of the American bombers and missiles that took part in the NATO training exercise. NATO aircraft flights in international airspace were not an aggression against Russia, as the pro-Kremlin publications claim, but simply the usual military air exercises which had been planned well in advance. In fact, this is the third time this year that Norwegian fighters have trained with US strategic bombers. That's it for this week. There is much more dissected disinformation on our website, StopFake.org. Watch out for fakes and don't listen to Russian disinformation, because washing your hands and social distancing will in fact protect you from the coronavirus. And if you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, forward it to us for a truth autopsy. I'm Marko Suprun, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.